Welcome to Don't Chuck It Up, the podcast where we help students and families navigate the wild journey of the college search and help you applying to colleges without breaking a sweat. I'm your host, Chuck, and today we're talking about choosing a major. But before I dive into today's topic, I just want to take a moment and say thank you and wow. You see, it's now the start of August, and I have been checking on my podcast analytics for the month of July, and holy moly, you all are really tuning in and paying attention to the Don't Chuck It Up podcast. In fact, these last couple of episodes, hundreds of you have tuned in and listened before I even publicized the episode. So I am just absolutely grateful and thankful. I'm like, wow, I actually have an audience. I have a following, and you all are here listening to me on a weekly basis. And I am just so unbelievably grateful and thankful. So shout out to you who are listening to this podcast. You're listening all across the United States and really around the globe. I thank you for tuning in to Don't Chuck It Up. I am doing this because I really enjoy talking about this process and helping you navigate it and have less stress, less anxiety. I really hope this stuff has been helping. Please like these episodes, share them with your friends, and let's keep this momentum going because our YouTube channel just hit 100,000 views and we couldn't have done that without you. So thank you to all of you who are listening on the audio version of the podcast, and for those of you who are watching me on YouTube, I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Thanks, and welcome to the Don't Chuck It Up podcast family, I guess. So let's dive into today's topic, choosing a major. So about 2 years ago, back in episode 6, I recorded an episode about choosing a major. It was a really great episode. It's still one of the episodes that I hear most from listeners regarding as to, hey, that was really helpful. But a lot has changed since then. And honestly, I've changed a little bit too. So today I want to revisit it. Same core question, but with kind of a fresh new look. Choosing a major might be the single most anxiety-inducing part of the whole process for students and for families. I hear it constantly. What if the student picks the wrong thing? What if it's a waste of money? And I totally get it, but I want to spend some time today unpacking why that fear, that dread of picking the wrong major, while completely understandable, is usually a bit overblown. So here's some things that I have noticed that have changed. One thing, and I think this is really worth naming it absolutely directly, is how much social media has shaped what students think is a, quote, safe major and what that particularly looks like. You see, there's a lot of social media content out there that normalizes business as the default choice, almost like it's the responsible option. And while true, a lot of students pick some type of major in business, in fact, when I ask them about why do you want to study actual business, the only answer that I usually typically get from a student is, well, I want to make money, and in order to make money, I need to have a business. Well, of course, everyone wants to make money. I think that's kind of the whole part of growing up and becoming an adult. Unless you have another means of procuring ways of sustaining yourself. But I think we all want to make money. And I've seen more and more students walk into an already decided on that specific major, sometimes without really having actually explored anything else. And this is a shift from a couple years ago, and I really do have mixed feelings about it. So here's something that I don't think I shared much in the original episode, my own path. And it was definitely not a straight line whatsoever. You see, ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to be in education. My mother was in education. I was surrounded by a lot of important people that were teachers and educators. And so I really wanted to be in education. And back then, the only thing I thought was possible was to be a high school teacher. The two subject areas that I really were invested in from a very, very early age were music. I started performing at a very young age. I was on stage. I have pictures of me when I was 4 as a performer. And I performed all throughout elementary, middle school, high school, and all throughout college as well. And then also my love of the Spanish language. My mother was a brilliant woman who said, you are going to need a second language. For many of you who aren't aware, I am significantly hearing impaired. I have a very vast hearing loss that I've had since birth, and learning to speak normal English was quite a bit of a challenge. And my mother knew that I would also need to learn another language at some point in time, especially because her plans for me was that I was going to go to college. I didn't know that as a kid, but that was her plans for me. So she signed me up, believe it or not, to start taking Spanish classes when I was 8 years old. I was taking basically high school level Spanish 1 at age 8. It was an after-school community program in our city. It was great. I would go, believe it or not, 1 day a week at the age of 8. 1 day a week, I'd go for a 2-hour class after school. And I did that every week, all the way through elementary school, middle school, and until I started high school, which then I switched to the natural Spanish classes that were being offered in my high school. So I was passionate about music and I was passionate about Spanish. I love both of them. But I went off to college. And I found a college where I could study both Spanish education and learn how to become a Spanish teacher and choral general music education, and I could become a licensed music teacher. Dream, I could be a Spanish-speaking music teacher. Bet. Great. I went through, I did all of the education. I even went and did student teaching as a music teacher. And it was while I was student teaching that I kind of went, I really want to do something else. Now, I need to backtrack a little bit. While I was in college, I worked in the admissions office. Picture it. Freshman year, I am fresh in the residence hall. I am walking down the hallway and I see a sign on the wall that says, "Do you love to talk? Do you love your college? Come see us." I definitely love to talk, and I was all in on my college experience, so I was game. They had a pizza party that night in the residence hall common area. I went to that. They said, "We are looking to hire students who are excited to talk about this college and meet with prospective students." That was my first job in college admissions, and I was hooked. And I worked all through the admissions office. I was an overnight host, a lunch host, a tour guide, a supervisor, an intern. I did all the jobs that I possibly could in admissions. Meanwhile, I was also planning to be a teacher. So what happened is while I was student teaching, a light switch went off. And I said, I am really passionate about helping people in the admissions process, and that's also education. Why don't I decide to shift from being a K-12 educator to working in higher education? And it also happened that my boss at the time, when I was working in admissions, called and said, "Hey, we need a maternity leave replacement, and she really recommended you as someone who could take over." So I ended up being a maternity replacement in the Office of Admissions, and that launched my entire career into professional higher education and the world of admissions. I went on to receive a master's degree in educational leadership policy studies with a focus in higher education and student affairs. I've had work in residence life, disability services, and a wide variety of other positions. And so my path was not straight at all. And I was diehard. When I was in high school, I was like, yep, I'm going to do this. I'm going to major in this. I'm going to be a successful Spanish-speaking music teacher. And life threw me curveballs. And so I really want people to be ready for those curveballs because neither of my majors screamed college admissions consultant or independent educational consultant is the next obvious step. But that path that I went through is a really big part of why I believe so strongly in finding the fit over the rankings, and why I tell families that your major and your career are two very separate decisions, not just one. So it is okay to be open-minded. It is okay to change your mind. I do not expect 17 and 18-year-olds to have their entire life planned out as far as major and career. I know there are parents and grandparents out there that did have a very direct path, and yes, that still does happen. But I'll tell you, it's not as common as you think. So it's okay to not have a direct path and to be open for change. So when I'm working with a student, I'm looking at things like, does a college let you explore the various majors before locking it in? How easy is it to switch majors at a particular college or university? Some it's super, super easy. You don't actually declare a major until the end of your sophomore year. Other colleges, you are locked into a certain college and you have to actually transfer inside of the university to another college, and there's a whole application process for that. So I want to look at those situations as well. I want to know are there strong minors or even double major options for students who are curious and want to explore multitude of areas. I've had students that want to do biology and music, or biology and a foreign language, or math and German, or art and philosophy. So I want to look for colleges that are willing and able to handle that student and give that student the opportunities that they're looking for. Is the university laid out more like a menu where you only get to choose one option? Or is the college or university structured like a buffet table where you get to explore and try the things that you are not familiar with? Those structural differences matter more than people realize. It's more important than how many people are packed into the football stadium. It's more important than do you see your sweatshirt being sold at your local sports store, or do you see your college on ESPN? So understanding how the majors, minors, and academic options at a college are laid out are way more important than what people think. So I also want to share a story about a student that I worked with not that long ago. He's now successfully launched into his career, but where he started is not where he ended up. You see, he came to me completely thinking pre-med. He was the son of two very, very strong medical professionals, very important doctors in our community, and he really was thinking that he wanted to go that direction. Absolutely brilliant young man, strong GPA, strong test scores, great AP classes, just academically brilliant. And in the spring of his senior year, he had already set his track on going towards that pre-med area, and he met with his parents and he said, I don't think this is for me. And his parents were friends of mine and reached out to me, and I said, well, let me meet with him and see what we can talk about. And as we started digging into this process and reflecting about what makes him happy, what gets him excited, some doubts about pre-med definitely started surfacing. And that's okay. And that's actually the process working the way it should. So what did we do? He deferred his enrollment for 1 full year and decided to go through a full process with me of exploration as to what he would like to do. You will never guess the path that he decided on. You see, once he and I started to talk about what his passions and interests were, it involved the music industry, it involved film and multimedia. In fact, he was really good with his iPhone. He had already been shooting videos of concerts that he was going to, sporting events that he was going to, and he really had a solid eye for this. So we started looking and exploring and trying to find options for him. And we found a college in California that allowed him to study both film and film production as well as the business of running your own production and editing studio. And he was hooked. So we worked on applications to that place and several other schools that allow for film production and film studio. And he was admitted to his first choice of film school, went off, had an amazing time in film school, ended up getting hired by bands that were touring the world. So in his senior year of college, he was literally being hired to fly around the country during his breaks and film concerts in other countries and then fly back to finish the senior year of college. He actually was on tour with a band literally days before his commencement ceremony. Now he is doing that full time. He is traveling the world, filming bands, being an amazing video creation and filmer, and just having a great experience. Far, far from his original path of going on to becoming a doctor. But I also want to be fair here because I've seen just as many students who walk in to meet with me dead set on something, such as accounting or nursing. And after we have gone through a lot of that exploration, they still ended up right where they started. And that is an awesome outcome too. You see, I want students to reflect and understand why they want to do a particular major or go into a career path. My goal is not to change their mind. My goal is to actually solidify their reasoning and their path of what they want to do. This isn't about taking every student out of their first instinct. It's about making sure the decision is actually theirs and it's well informed. Before I wrap up, let's bust a myth. So I hear this one all the time. Will applying undecided hurt my application? The short answer, no. And I say that with some confidence because I've spent over 10 years on the other side of the desk as an associate director of admissions at my alma mater, Lawrence University. And I saw firsthand how undecided students were evaluated. And I promise you, it was never treated as a red flag. And usually, as we said at Lawrence, a student wasn't undecided. They were multi-interested, and they struggled to pick just one thing. And that is perfectly fine. These are teenagers. They have a hard time picking out what they're going to have for dinner tonight or maybe eat for breakfast tomorrow. In fact, they have to ask permission to go to the restroom while they are in school. And yet, on the flip side, we ask them, what are you going to be when you grow up? I need to know your plan. That can be very stressful for them. So allow your student to explore. Help them look through majors and programs and understand that being undecided is perfectly okay. So if you're a parent listening to this in the car and your kid is half paying attention in the passenger seat, here's what I want you to walk away with. The major is not the whole story. It is a starting point. It is not a life sentence. Give your student room to explore. Ask questions about flexibility when you're touring colleges and universities. And try to let go of the idea that there's one right answer just sitting out there. In future episodes, I would like to talk about some various paths for students who are particularly interested in studying specific areas. I've already done one on engineering. I will be having others on other STEM fields, as well as business, nursing, pre-med, and much more. If there is a particular area that you would like me to cover and talk about as far as a major or career path exploration, drop a comment on this episode, send me an email, send me a direct message, and let me know, and I would love to talk about it. You can also email me at don'tchuckituppodcast@gmail.com. And by the way, before we wrap up this week, I have launched a Facebook community specifically for our little Don't Chuck It Up family here. It's called Don't Chuck It Up College Admissions Community. And it's a place to keep talking about everything that we cover here on the podcast. You can ask questions, share your own story, or tell us what you want to hear next in a future episode. So please come say hi, join the Facebook community, the Facebook group called Don't Chuck It Up College Admissions Community. I'd love to see you there. Thanks for listening to Don't Chuck It Up. If today's episode was helpful, and I hope it was, be sure to subscribe and share this episode with a family who is navigating the college search and the application process. I'll be back next week with more tips and tricks. Until then, remember, don't chuck it up.